This is Dave Spicer, and I'm here to speak with you about IdentityJS. It's a new way to develop applications from end to end using just JavaScript as the only development language. The goal is to reduce system development and maintenance costs by a factor of 10 by focusing on your applications and not the infrastructure to build them. You can get the full story of IdentityJS at IdentityJS.com. Today, most systems have this configuration. We have multiple clients sitting out here, be they Android phones, iPhones, or browsers, connected to a server of some kind. And the server could be a single machine, it could be an IoT device, it could be a commercial cloud vendor supporting clusters of servers. Regardless of what's on the right-hand side here, typically the only thing of importance is the URL to communicate to that. And so identity has two different pieces. There's Identity Client and Identity Cloud. And today we're going to focus on Identity Client and how to support smartphone apps, be they Android or iPhone, smartphone browser and desktop browser with one single set of source code, and maintain it remotely through something called a code server. So let's go look at the architecture for Identity Client. So here in this picture, we have the architecture of Identity Client, and depending on whether it's running as a browser or an app, we'll talk about the differences. So what's common to all configurations is the JavaScript environment, which I have outlined in this smaller rectangle here. And as you can see, it's really a container for applications. You can have as many as you like, and they can be chosen from a menu, which we'll show you in a bit. And then these applications have access to the hardware, be it GPS, this phone itself, the camera, the file system, etc. If they are running as a smartphone app. In that case, the entire picture takes effect, and the JavaScript environment is running inside a web view, which is the only native UI component in either smartphone, and that allows us to connect to the underlying hardware through a JavaScript API in both directions. So the majority of access is going from the JavaScript environment into the hardware to, let's say, get a GPS coordinate or access the phone or the camera or the file system. There are examples of going the other direction, though, and those are autonomous events that can come into the phone itself, like GPS updates, notifications, all kinds of things that can come in this way and then go take this route and alert your JavaScript software up here. But again, only thing you need here is a JavaScript environment, and a text editor is your only IDE. So now let's take a look at what this is going to look like on a browser. And so this is IdentityJS.com. If you go to that website, here's the browser interface to that. And we'll see in a moment it looks similar on a smartphone browser. But basically, IdentityJS is implemented in itself. So what you see here is technology built out of the technology I'm talking about. So this website, and as you can see up here, I'm actually running my development version of this site because we're going to make some changes in a moment. This website is actually, while running as a website, it can also run as an application inside the phone, and we'll show you that in a minute. So let's bring up our smartphones, and we have, over on the right, we have an iPhone, and these are the actual phones, not simulators. So an interesting point here is that to test with this environment, you don't need the simulators. In fact, the simulator tends to slow you down. As anyone who knows who's written smartphone applications natively, you end up spending a lot of time with the IDE and the debugging system and the simulators. But the trouble is, of course, that's not enough. You end up having to retest all your software on a real phone anyway, because the simulators can't do everything. They can't make phone calls and things like that. So In this environment, you can do all of your testing in just your smartphone, and it can be your personal phone. We don't need a special phone. We don't need a development phone. It can be your personal smartphone that you're doing the testing on, which is actually a better environment to test on because your users aren't going to have anything special on their phones either. So you want to make sure you're testing an environment the same way as testing that the users will be using it. So on the right we have my iPhone, my personal iPhone. And if I scroll up and down, you'll see it tracks along. So you can see this is my real phone. It's not a simulator. But you can also see it's coming from the same URL. At the top of the screen is coming from the Whitestone URL, as is the Android phone on the left-hand side. So over here is my Android phone, and it's from the Whitestone DNS URL. So now what we can see is this whole system is written using responsive technology, which means it can fit on any size screen, any resolution screen, and any screen with any aspect ratio. So one of the problems in developing smartphone apps is that the phones keep changing. Certainly with Androids, they come out all the time with different screen attributes, be it size, aspect ratio, resolution, or all three. And what we need is a technology that will adapt to that. So if I go back to my browser, I can show you why this is responsive. If I take the lower right-hand corner and stretch it, you'll see everything is resizing itself accordingly. And it gets more interesting if I open what I call the drawer here and show you the menus. Now if I resize it, everything is going to stay appropriate and visible regardless of the size and the shape. So that's why we can fit on any size phone. You don't have to worry about the iPhone or Android phones causing you to redevelop your software. Okay, so now we can see it's running the same version of the software. The version number is up here. It's 2.248, and you can see it on the right-hand side as well. And here it is in the desktop browser. So this is the version of the identity app that we're running. And now we're going to go ahead and view this as a smartphone app. So here's the browser version. I'm going to get on my iPhone here, and I'll bring up an app called I Am OK. This is the first app. It's up on the App Store. You can download it yourself, written in this technology. And if I go ahead and open this drawer, you'll see that I've actually got two applications running. I have I Am OK and IdentityJS. As I said before, the Identity Client technology is actually a container. You can put multiple applications in. So you'd imagine as a corporation, you might have just one application that you submit to the App Store. And after that, you can start adding applications, identity applications, as many as you like, without going back to the App Store. So let's go to Identity and hit the Home button. Now this should look familiar. It's the same screen that we had on the browser, but of course what's different and what tells you it's really running as an application is that we've lost the browser's header and footer overhead. So remember in the browser, well, let's go back to it. Here's the browser. We have the address bar on the top and we have navigation on the bottom. If I go back to the actual app, we can see they're no longer there, but of course because it's responsive and written in that fashion, it actually adapts to the full screen. Now let's go ahead and we'll do the same thing on the Android. So here's the I Am OK application on the Android, same code, no difference. Now we're going to select IdentityJS, go to the home screen, and there we have it. So now we have both machines running native applications, but implemented in IdentityJS, so the code is the same, whether it's a native application or running in the browser. Now, the way to actually test this, to verify this is true, is we need to go back to some code here. This is the identity app right here. This is my development environment. I'm using Eclipse, but you can use any text editor you like. Eclipse is nice because it's free, first of all, and it comes with a free JavaScript plugin, which allows me to display my JavaScript in an outline form here on the left, and it highlights all my classes, my JavaScript classes, which implement this application. By the way, there's only one file, one JavaScript file that contains all of my software. So you can imagine what it's like to write an application natively in Objective-C or Java, and the number of classes in the case of IOK, it's about over 100 classes, and all of that fits in one file in IdentityJS. Here are the classes, and the class we're interested in is the ID test view controller, because that's the one that is presenting this function right here. So if I look at identity tests, these are little widgets that are included that you can demonstrate to yourself, what the code looks like and how it performs accessing the hardware. Now, if I switch back to my browser and go to that same location, if I hit the coordinates button or access a new picture from the library, I don't get anything because it's not connected to the hardware. Okay. If I go back to my application, if I hit the coordinates button, I actually get coordinates. So now I'm actually accessing the hardware through a JavaScript interface and getting the results back through that same interface. Now let's go and we'll access a photograph from the library. And of course, since it's running as an app, we have access to this hardware. So I'm going to pick a picture, and this happens to be my granddaughter, and there you have it. So I'm accessing the hardware from the same code that's running in the browser. Let's go do the same thing on the Android machine. Again, in fact, let me do this first. Let me go to this screen here and run my tests here. If I try to get coordinates, I don't get any coordinates because, again, this is running in the browser. I can't access the phone library because there's no phone here, but it's the same code. So now let me go back to the Android machine, and here's my browser version and my test view controller. And again, I can hit coordinates, nothing happens. Go for a picture from the library, nothing happens. So let me then now go to the actual application. So now we're running it as an application. And let's try getting coordinates. There they are. Let's go back, let's try our library. Let me take a picture at random here. And there you have it. So now it's pulled that picture into my app via the JavaScript interface to the hardware. So we can access any hardware functionality through the API that's built into what I call a universal application. So basically we have only one application that needs to be distributed to the App Store or Google Play. And the only difference between those applications is the logo you want to display, the name that goes underneath that logo, and the URL of your identity application. So in that way we can actually get you a loaner application and get you started quickly. So now the only thing left to show here is that we actually are running the identical code, of course. We want to make sure that we indicate that in this case we're running 2.248 of this application. So let's go back to our browser. And in this case, we're going to go to our source code. And we'll change something dramatic. It's in our ID test view controller. And down here, I've actually commented out because I do this quite often, is I'm going to take these out and we're going to do something dramatic in that one view. We're going to take the background from what I call Battleship Gray and turn the background color black. We're going to turn the color of the fonts white because otherwise they'd get lost in the black background. And we're going to turn off the border. There's a small border that sits around, and we're going to turn that off as well. So I'm going to save that. Notice I don't have to build anything. The other thing I need to do is go down here and update my version. Remember, it was version 2.248. So I'm going to go to 2.249 and save it. The other thing we need to do is update our control file that says what our minimum release is. So we want to update that to 2.249 as well. Okay, so there we go. Now what I'm going to do is go back to our browser version, desktop browser, reload. And now let's go look at our identity test screen. And there you have it. We've changed some code and pretty ugly, but the background is now black and the text that was black is now white. And we got rid of the border. But that's how easy it was. It's all just JavaScript and HTML and some CSS. Now let's see what happened on our machines. Let's go look at my iPhone here. Sure enough, it's changed there as well. And of course, we need to do the same thing here. And now there we have it on our Android machine. So now the real test is, what about our smartphones? Okay, these are everything you see so far is run in the browser, and now we want to see what's going to happen as we run it as an app. So let me switch over to the actual app, and notice it discovered that we need to update our version to 2.249. It's going through and finding all the libraries and everything else that needs to be updated. It'll take just a few seconds. Okay, there it's done. It is reloaded. If I go back to my test screen, there it is. Now it's running as an app, so it updated that code. We'll do the same thing over here. Notice that we have the same information here. We need to update our screen. So it's actually going out and testing. Now because it's written everything including the identity code is written in JavaScript, this is the same code that's running. Even the system code is the same. It's running on both machines. Okay, there it is. Let's go take a look at our test library. And there it is. There's our test screen. And as you can see, it has been changed as well. So there you have it. We have a single set of source code, and it's running on 5 different configurations, dynamically updating them on the fly and synchronizing updates. So today, if you're writing native code, you have the problem of synchronizing updates. If you need to put out a new release, you've got to get a release out on the iPhones and Androids. iPhone is unpredictable. It could take anywhere from 4 to 7 days in my experience. Android is more predictable. It can take place anywhere between 4 hours and 24 hours. But it still has the issue of synchronizing them. You don't know, you can't really release your Android phone until your code until the iPhone code is there. And with this technology, everything is synchronized. Everything gets released together, be it browser or smartphone. Thank you very much.